especially we're grateful for your son, Jesus. And it's in his name that we pray. Amen.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, recap of closed session, March 5th, 2026. It's not, yeah, for 9/11, it's obviously the topic of tonight. Hello there. The session is devoted to the 911 aspect. There's nothing else on the agenda. Old business discussion and potential action. We'll move back to 911 addressing. Before we start, I want to welcome our guest. You gotta eat it? Yeah. I want to welcome our guest, Tanner Irv, who is here today. And certainly, he's worked very hard and he's worked very closely with us. And so we want to treat him with a good hilltop warm reception. And there's lots of questions to be asked, lots of answers that need to be generated. But we're pleased that you came, Tanner, and face this community. It means a lot to all of us. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so say you want to start with.
Yeah, I'd like to add that if you'd like to sign up to speak, please fill out a form. If we're out of forms, just let me know. But Tanner's here to kind of give us an update overview of the last section, which is the most impactful around the community. So please allow him this time to kind of explain some of the changes, why they were made. He'll walk through it for us. We'll try to move as slow as we can. And if you have any questions, we will have time at the end of the meeting to hear your concerns. Thank you.
Okay, Tanner, you've got the floor.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Yeah. I have a pretty good voice on me, so I think I'm going to try to use it tonight. If y'all can grab the microphone that I can. So again, my name is Tanner Irv. I'm the GIS engineer at the BD Cog, so I've been spearheading everything that's been going on here in Hilltop Lakes. Tonight, I just want to discuss what's coming up in Phase 5, which is going to touch a lot of people in the community around the golf course. Okay? So, I have two different maps that I just kind of want to show everybody. I'm assuming most people here are from the golf course area. Some. Okay. So I'll just kind of go through quickly the golf course changes then, because I'm quite sure that people that aren't on the golf course have more questions than for me than what I'm going to show on this map. So a few things that we have to do in GIS, right, as it comes to 911 routing and 911 call forwarding, right? One thing that we have to do is we have to look at what's called road geometry, okay, which is how the road actually functions in the real world. I've been out here in Hilltop Lakes driving around. Some of y'all seen my truck. Some of y'all have stopped me and had conversations with me. I come out with the county coordinator, who is my database coordinator for 911 addressing for the county, and we grab what's called centerline accurate data with what's called a Trumbull unit, which is just a unit, it's a term for a device that has and collects 9 satellites so that we can get pinpoint accurate information. Okay? So in this most recent phase, we came out to phase 5. Right? So a lot of people will recognize this orange line as Gulfview Drive. And Gulfview Drive kind of comes up to an intersection, right? It kind of tees off and then it kind of spurs off in different directions. So we call that a true break in road geometry. So based on the road break in geometry, Gulfview Drive is going to stop at that intersection. And a new road name was voted on tonight, which is the blue section that you see, which was a continuation of Gulfview Drive. But because there's a break in that geometry, it needed a new road name. Okay, so
Where's that at?
where's what at?
That intersection of blue. Where's that at?
That blue is the old Gulfview Drive. That blue line is Gulfview Drive that runs parallel to the golf course.
He said the key in the road is actually where the curve is on.
Yes.
Yes. But there's no road that goes through the pink, now that's the double.
Yeah, it's dirt.
You got that Gulfview Drive north and it's right now?
So that is the blue and the green line, which is North Gulfview Drive.
It's the road that Joyce. It's your road that takes you to the pro shop from the backside, right? You go here, you go Gulfview, right? And it turns. Everybody with me?
So that intersection is up by the airport. It's
Right.
really by the
Yeah,
airport.
where the airport is to the left,
Okay.
if this way it changes now. When you turn, that's gonna be a whole other road. Is that are we together now?
Now that we know where the intersection is.
Yeah.
I got you.
There's not an intersection.
So here we are right here, right?
That's Hilltop Drive.
Here we are. So let's leave here and go over here and take Gulfview Drive. It is.
Okay.
Then it turns, right?
It curves. Now, where's the curve?
Yeah,
And
that's not that one.
the geometry to them, it changes.
What is the street is the blue right now? What is the street?
Gulfview.
Okay. So when you say turn, is the pink the dirt road?
Yeah.
So that's Johnson. Alright, the pink road is Johnson, which is something else that was changed, which I was gonna elaborate on if we got to that point. Just everybody knows Gulfview, and I know that's Gulfview is probably a touchy point. That's why I started with Gulfview. So the orange and blue, like she just said, is right now in the 911 maps is Gulfview. But based on true road geometry on how we take this data, the orange line comes into really a double T intersection is what we call it. Because it tees off here, and then it tees off where Johnson comes back around on the other side. Now, they only need 10 feet right there. And Lord knows there's no stop sign, so a lot of people just kind of treat it as a curve. I know when I was walking around, I almost got hit by a Jeep. But
That was their curve.
I understand, but based on road geometry, if you're standing on the blue line and you're looking backwards, you're looking down, you can't. Right? That's true road geometry, right? We get up to that intersection, I walk out into the middle of it and I look, I'm directly also looking down, you can't. And if I turn around, I'm looking down Gulfview. So that is where we look at true road geometry, right? Because the geometry shows it as a straight line, and that's the intersection. Now, how it's treated in the real world, based on how the community treats it, is a completely different story, right? But from a GIS perspective, we have to look at it from a geometry point of view. Because that's how 911 call routing works. So, okay? So, as we move around, even in the 911 data, we can see here where there's no black line that exists because the 911 data, there's not a road that's there. But truly and honestly, there is a road, right? Because I drove on that road. I was able to pull what's called Trimble data off that road. And so the blue line will show a continuation of what that road will be, right? And so then when we get into North Gulfview, which is the yellow and green line, again, I'm quite sure some people would say the same thing, that as you get to the edge of the yellow and into the green, that's more of a curve. But again, in GIS 911 geometry, that is a change in road geometry. So the yellow line will be its own road segment, what we call a unique road identifier, a road center line. And then as it turns from there, it will turn into a new road coming down. That's what the green indicates based on the geometry that was pulled.
Is it gonna be straight, is it gonna be, what, Sand Drive all the way down to the, where it meets, Mill?
Correct. I don't have that data in front of me to say, and I don't want to think out of place. Okay, so, and that is just based off the North Gulfview geometry. So this is the front half, or the top half of phase 5 that we were looking at. And the bottom half of phase 5 is this portion here. Right? So currently as it stands, Gulfview Drive, which is the green line here, comes up. Sorry. Golf Club Drive. As it currently stands, Golf Club Drive comes up, then it disappears in 911 data. And then it magically reappears on the other side by the clubhouse, and it carries all the way up and back and down around. Okay? That is ineligible against all of our standards because you cannot pick up a roadway after it's been separated by another road segment.
And what is the blue line?
So the blue line is Fairway Drive.
Is that staying the same?
Fairway Drive is not being changed. That's correct. So Fairway Drive is coming down on Hilltop Drive, coming all the way around, and it will go all the way out to the T intersection where Casper and what used to be Golf Club Drive was. Well, Golf Club Drive was voted to be, I don't know if that's right, I don't have it. Mulligan?
No.
Like the other one, you have a list out of all the changes, just give me a day or two to get it together.
It was did it.
Did it. Just give me a day or two to get it together, right, from this meeting, and we'll get it posted so everyone can see it on Facebook and on the website. So we'll have something at the Welcome Center that you can pick up.
Okay, so moving on, so on the same philosophy, right, so if we come up, and we come on to Sammy Steen, nothing is changing about Sammy Steen. Okay, so Sammy Steen, Van Hogan, nothing is changing. The only thing that's changing about Johnson is Johnson's going from a lane to a loop, because it truly comes back in on itself. Van Buren, because it cuts through the loop, it's going to be Van Buren Crossing. And then all of your Ford, Grant, Truman, and Buchanan, they're just getting a post type. They're not, the actual name is not going to change. So the number will change based on the road base, and the distance that you are based on the road base, which is how we calculate what the address will be. But we are still in the process of gathering all those points. So
every number is gonna change,
correct.
even on Gulfview.
Especially Gulfview.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff, driving down Gulfview, you have both even and odd standing on, or existing on the same side of the road. And then you have number 7 that exists before number 2. So that is a lot. Gulfview is actually where this whole project began. And it started from the development on Gulfview. That's actually how this whole project began.
Are the numbers on Fairway changing?
Yes, they are. Everybody's number will change. Even Sammy Steen. The pink, thank you. So, coming off of Fairway Drive, right, as we were talking about geometry, we have to have a fundamental understanding of how the geometry of the roadway works, right? So, really we hit 2 Y intersections, which is right here into the current Fairway Drive circle loop area. And then the non-existent roadway that does exist, that I was talking about earlier, that connects back up here. So you have 2 Ys that exist, which is a true split in the geometry. So as we evaluated that, we were looking at it, it was the same thing here, that this was changed to putter circle.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
One question. Could you maybe lead off the meeting with why this is going on?
Absolutely. So so I want to make sure I understand your question. Why is this happening?
Exactly.
So, the why is very simple, and it may not have been conveyed, so let me try to convey that now for you. Okay, a lot of this began because you have properties that are out here for sale, and people that were trying to buy, get construction loans and build, in an area that, because of the addressing the way that it was done to begin with, there was no address left to give. Because there was no number left to give, they were stuck with a piece of property that they couldn't build on, that they couldn't get a loan on.
Wow.
Because they could not get it through the back end offices.
Wow. So it's nothing to do with 911?
It has to do with 911, absolutely. Because in order for that to happen, because for you to get there and get your certificate of occupancy, you have to have a 911 address.
Okay.
If I cannot issue you a 911 address, how do you do the rest?
But you're talking about one street.
Correct, but that's one, right. The first example that I gave was on Gulfview, but there were scattered examples throughout Hilltop Lakes. I don't have that information in front of me to tell you exactly where all throughout Hilltop Lakes that was happening, but that was scattered throughout Hilltop
Well,
Lakes.
you're saying geometry that roads like golf club, it's got a curve in it, but you got a road going all the way around. In geometry, that, like you said on Longview North, that should be a different road. If that's the case, you're changing your stories.
I'm not understanding your question to understand how I'm changing my story.
Gulfview North, where it's got a curve in the road, there's no T there. Y'all change that name of that road.
Are you referring, so just so I can follow along with you,
Yes.
sir, are you referring to this map?
Yes, the yellow and green.
Okay, yellow and green.
Yes.
You following? Okay.
There's a curve there. There's no T in the road, there's no stop sign, there's nothing. That's a
You
T.
can't go straight, you're in a guy's pool.
So-
you go left, you're in the woods.
That don't make sense when you go back down Golf Club Drive down at the bottom. You got a curve in it, but it doesn't change. You're saying in street geometry, that's the way it should be.
Correct. I don't have the pure geometry data up or with me to be able to show you what that geometry looks like from a tripling aspect. Right? I'm telling you what I know and how I have reviewed and verified the data. So, but I don't have that data to present.
What I'm saying, you got it on the map, right there. Golfview.
I have, right, and understandably, this is old geometry data, because in order to effectively update the geometry data is to effectively change the 911 map. And because residents have not been notified of what their address or road name is going to be, I cannot update the geometry. Right, so I get in this weird spot. That's why I bring highlighted maps, because even on this map, it doesn't show what the road names were. I create a legend, right? So that you understand and we have a point of reference to speak to. Because I cannot change the 911 data without residents being notified and within a time window of what the old address to the new address would be. So make
I understand that,
okay.
and the address part, but the road, when the road turns, it doesn't break. How do you just all of a sudden break the road to two different roads?
Again, I would love to go more technically answer that question if I was genuinely evaluating the data and how the data to present to you.
This is what you're presenting.
Correct, but I'm explaining to you based on the data that I took and that I've reviewed and I have verified. Where this map may not be accurate to the data that I have reviewed, I just explained that is because in order to effectively make a map is to effectively change the 911 map. And I cannot do that.
But-
For public safety reasons, I cannot do that.
But in that case that he's talking about, right, we understood when he said Gulfview Drive, it's for, a true corner, right? That's why you would change it, because it doesn't really continue straight on the big road. So, okay, that's fine. So now Gulfview Drive North, though, you don't have a choice at that point between yellow and green. Like I said, you're in a guy's yard. If you go straight, you're in the yard. If you go left, you're in the woods. It is a continuous road, and I mean, I'm not on that road. I'm on Gulfview. So I don't lose my numbers, and I'll live with it. But I can picture all those people on the yellow and the green road that have been on Gulfview Drive North for all these years. And, well, hold on, and they're on Gulfview Drive North. So now, because someone says it's got two roads, they throw away Gulfview Drive North. So both people have completely different names of roads that mean nothing.
That don't make sense.
It just doesn't, it's no logic. It's like making too much of a mess out of it when you should be doing as few changes as possible.
And trust me, we do our best there was just short of a dozen, if my memory serves, but I don't have that data. Correct. But in that same, right, and I understand where you're coming from, but in that same philosophy, somebody who wants to come out and be a part of your community, and they have no address to be able to give, how is it right for them to purchase a piece of land that they can never build on, that they want to build on to be a part of the community? So I'm just trying to understand, like, where do we separate that, right? So because if they buy a piece of land and they want to be a part of this community's build, they should have just as much of a right to do so. And I advocate for all of those, right? But unfortunately, it's a domino effect, because when the subdivision was created back in the 70s, there was not foresight to be able to do this. It was not projected to be as big and as grown to what it has.
And you know what? All guys got a question.
I'm grabbing it and I'm grabbing it.
I don't know how many people know it, but I'm an attorney also, and I want to know. And I'm writing the history of Hilltop. Most a lot of people know that. But the original plat, 1968, how do you get the authority of anyone to change what is platted and on record? Where did you get the authority?
Yes.
You don't have the authority to change my plat. Period. Statute, not 9/11.
Everybody stand up and say that, it'd be all right.
Wasn't there a point where we had to have 3 numbers versus 2? Did someone say that at the very beginning to fix all this?
So that's what we begin to say by what is the road base, right? So because it is a community that exists beyond a certain amount of homes that are out here, a base has to be set. And it's that base number that we work off through the entire community. So that base number was set in 3 digits, and it's 3 digits based off of length. And that length is what's set for the entire region.
And that's what you need to say.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people not understanding that. They were here at the time.
Oh, okay.
By the way, the ABC streets were named in 1968. It's when they were named. And you're changing even some of those. Doesn't make sense. Man, I think Acapulco's one of them. Isn't it?
Yeah, that's the first one.
That's the first one. I think I did that too.
We have 2 houses in that blue that are not in the original map. Mine and across the street with Jerry Johnson now blue. Now owns. Where the blue is, coming around to the pro shop. That's not considered an intersection.
Coming around to what now?
The pro shop, this is the pro shop. Blue line. Right there, right? That's the post office. At the end of that blue line. There's no line there.
Correct. There's no
It
line.
says P-A-R-R. Golfers, is there a P-A-R-R in golf? No. It's P-A-R. The thing is, because of the ethnicity, go to the streets, the ways, just like you, John. Those were given to us by the county. By the county.
Yes, sir.
Does this just apply to Hilltop Lakes or just solidly on campus?
So to answer that
Can't
question,
hear you if everybody's talking. Okay?
so his question was, does this affect Hilltop Lakes or does this affect Leon County? Was that the question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the answer is neither. So as the BPCOG, the 911 district, we oversee 6 counties. This applies to all 6 counties, not just Hilltop Lakes, not just Leon County, but to the 6 counties that we cover.
So you're checking all 6 counties?
No, ma'am. Because there are certain criteria. There are certain criteria that will start off a project. Because right now I have one that's going on in Burleson that affects 200 addresses. I have one in Robertson, which affects about 100. I have another in Grimes County that affects just short of 400. And those are the ones that I'm working with. So So no, there are certain criteria, there's tests that are applied to whether or not something has to be changed, and we have to come in and do it. Because our goal was not to come in and disrupt everybody's life. It was not to come in and to change everybody's addresses. Hilltop Lakes had to evolve and grow with the community and with the county so that other people could come in and buy, build, and develop and be a part of this community as well. And when Hilltop Lakes hit that criteria for the change, that is when we initiated this, and we came out starting back in September to have these conversations to let everybody know what was coming.
Is all of the houses in the same area, or all of the lots in the same area? Or are they scattered all over?
The ones that, talk about the ones that needed to be readdressed, are they in a specific area?
No, they were
Or are they
scattered
random
throughout.
throughout?
It was scattered throughout the time. One that was very particular was two of them on the airport, one actually out of the airport city towards the back end. That was one. Another one was on Gulf, and then there was about 8 or so more that were scattered throughout that we had tried several times and had done what we could with county officials and working out here and things of that nature to avoid having to come through and do all of this. But finally, when enough was piled up, we were in a position where we had to. And that was for the growth development.
Try to get through the rest of the changes so that we can ask questions afterwards, please.
Because they all have to fit within the base, right? So when the schema, and it's just like, you know, people buying and living out on the golf course, they want everything to stay golf themed, golf related, right? It's that, so we call that a schema or a theme. And based on that theme, when road-based number was set, that gets applied to the entire community. And we don't cherry pick that because we want to keep everything universally along the same continuum. Does that make sense?
Can we hold questions? I don't mean to cut you off, but can you try to get through this and hold questions until we're trying to get through the meeting. So can we please try to? So we need to try to get through the rest of the changes so that we can then go to the questions at the end, okay?
Okay, so a few other things that occurred was patio drive. Again, patio drive being a loop that comes back in on itself, so that just came into patio loop. Hickory Bridge, which was something that we dealt with in a phase 4 change, and we knew that Hickory Bridge was duplicated back into phase 5. So again, I wanted to try to keep all of the changes within singular phases, so we didn't cherry pick all over the entire community. So this is where we came back and we fixed Hickory Ridge Place, okay, which is now Masters Place. Thank you. Sir. And then the only other thing is, so like T Road, that was changed for 911 simplicity, right? T, letter T, T-E-E, T-E-A. Yes, ma'am. So that was changed.
That's changed.
Yes, ma'am.
We're the only house on that whole road.
Yes, ma'am. And it's because you're down on that road, right? It's no different than Iron, right? Which is the road that's right. Because that's considered a private road. Because his driveway is the only thing that's behind it. Because he is addressed off of his front door, just based on circumstances. That is why he's actually addressed off of North Gulfview, whereas you have that road pretty much to yourself. Right? So, but because it's T, a 911 dispatcher is not going to just hear T and think, and if I were to show you what that map looks like, it's going to be every T in the county that pops up. So it has to be unique, and even though TEE is unique, as we try to verbalize that to a dispatcher that is not enunciated well enough to be unique in that.
We've had, ambulances under our house, no problem.
Right, and that was a question that we addressed in the first go round, right? Was, we have our own EMS, right? And we have our own fire department that can come out for this, right? You used to have your own deputy that was assigned out here, now it's the entire sheriff's office. You get new deputies, you get new firefighters, you get new EMS people. Something major happens within an area, they get called for mutual assistance, but then another call drops out here, and you end up having to get St. Joe's or somebody else who does not know your community, and who's not going to be understanding that, well, I know, where Miss Ma'am lives over off of T Road, I get that. The dispatcher may not understand that. So we have to think about those types of things, and a lot of this comes from learning lessons from what happened out in the Hill Country, right? The Hill Country thought it was invincible, and they had everything and all the boxes checked and teed. We have to think about the contingencies. And where my heart, my prayers go out to all the people that were affected out there. One of the things that we sit and we learn about is what can we do to prevent something catastrophic like that. And that is where a lot of conversations come from and exist, is we do not want that to happen to the people that we serve. Right? So that's why a lot of everything that 911 does revolves around public safety. Right? Revolves around fire, EMS, law enforcement, all the works and utilities, because we work closely with them through this entire process as well. Does that answer your question?
Show us about the name of the street? Well, we don't like the name.
I would highly encourage you to talk to your representatives on the board about what that is.
We've tried to do sorry. There were somebody,
Because it hasn't been changed. Because again, this is a snapshot of the 911 data. Snapshot. So I don't see any need to change the actual 911 data. Sir. Sure. So the question.
can you look at that song? Or change it to
It's got names.
Can you go to your spreadsheet and work on?
I never changed the name. We never used Paul.
Yeah, so when you go to your spreadsheet. So Paul, it didn't say Paul. So in our meeting, we'll change it to Tin Cup. Tin Cup.
Like Caddyshack Rooney?
Yes, there is.
So the question was asked, what is the origin? Where did all of this initiate from? Right? Did the county just make this up? Did BG Cog just make this up one day? The answer to both of those questions is no. So where this all began is there's a federal organization called NENA. Okay, NENA sets the guidelines and standards for all of the United States. And every state adopts a version of those standards. Right? So here in the state of Texas, we call them CSEC. That is our regulating governing body. Right? That is who gives us the authority to come in and to be able to explain and do these things, because as it pertains to the 911 data. Okay? So where all this began is in what NENA calls Project 2030. Okay? Which is a set of guidelines and standards that, if adopted by that state, must be implemented by that timeline, which is, by its own nature, 2030. And so a lot of development, growth, and change that occurs within our region, we have to apply that standard to it so that we are up to our own guidelines and standards, because that is where the funding for the 911 equipment here in Leon County comes from. Because if we are not in compliance with that, then we do not receive that federal funding, or that state funding rather, in order for you to have the 911 equipment to get the 911 calls, for those calls to be routed to you. And so, again, going back to kind of the litmus test that I was referring to of what kicks this project off, based on the standards that were given to us that we must be in compliance with by 2030, and the changes that needed to occur out here fit the test that said if this is going to be done, then it has to be done universally. Does that answer your question?
I can imagine some of the frustration for, again, I'm on golf field, so I'm not full of thinking. But you said this is phase 5 of renaming streets. This is the first meeting we're having. The people really aren't being heard. And if I look at this, just your picture right there, it looks like you're not changing as few names as you have to. You're changing every name kind of randomly. And that would bug me if I was on Gulfview Drive North. When it's a big long street, it's a drive, it could be a road like anything else. The name probably fits. It still has a golf theme. And so you're going to take 40 properties on Gulfview Drive North and change your name for no apparent reason. Even if you have to take that yellow little section, I guess, which, whatever, but none of us who live on that road have had any consultation, have any discussion and say, okay, if you have to change Gulfview Drive North, what are our options, and let those folks have a say. I mean, this looks like it's baked in by now, and it's really nothing to say. Just wait and tell me what makes that.
Correct, and I can understand your frustration, and I can understand where you're coming from. And my role, in conjunction with the county, is to have those conversations with the people that you elect, right? It's your board. And that's why we come out and we have those conversations with them. And where I understand this is the first time that you've been a part of this conversation. I was out here in either September or October, and I did an open forum community conversation where I could answer any questions for anybody in the room as to why this was coming, the phases that it was coming in, the timeline in which it looked, and how many people were being affected in each of the individual phases. So where I understand where you're coming from, these were conversations that were had, that we were, and I can't speak for your board, right? I can only speak for my own position, right? But that position was that there is a body here that represents the community, and that is the conversation where we have existed.
So I guess the question is, are the members of the board deciding the names of the streets that are going to get changed, or is it coming from your agents?
So I give recommendations, and the board takes a vote. It's no different than tonight, where there were some things that they did not agree with. They voted on something else.
So it's not really a vote, it's not a vote, right? It's discussion, things that we come out here to do, right? We can't vote on these decisions, right? So what we're trying to do is work in conjunction with them to try to limit as much change as possible. I will tell you, we've spent many meetings with them, we do not want to change that road name, and him saying, well, here's the risk that you're going to impose on if you don't change the name, and we had to acknowledge that risk and take it.
So why is Gulfview Drive North changing?
Because it's too similar to Gulfview Drive.
Because what?
Gulfview Drive and then Gulfview Drive North.
And
The same
confuse
road.
people?
It's not that it confuses people, but it doesn't follow the geometry the way that the data comes in and shows the geometry of the roadway speed.
But it's not the way you're saying. You look at Golf Club, there it is not curving in, you got still the same name.
Yes, sir. And like I stated previously, right, this is not a representation of the data that I came out and collected. Because in order to do that, I have to effectively change the 911 map, which I cannot do until meetings are held and people are notified. Right?
Ray, do you have
Yeah, I got a quick question, based on what you was talking about, the, federal funding, did I hear you correct?
Yes, sir.
On this project?
Yes, sir.
So my question, because I've had quite a few property owners come to me and ask me, if this is coming down from the federal government to the state, down to the county, down to us, are we gonna get some kind of recruitment for changing these signs, these street signs? As far as from the federal government, from the state government, from the county, so on and so forth, or is this coming out of quote-unquote POA funds, which is the property owner's money?
Correct. So that is something that is being worked on. That is still a very active and ongoing discussion. So I can't say whether there is going to be full commitment behind that, or a level or percentage of commitment to it, or there's no commitment because it is an ongoing conversation. Sorry? With an ongoing conversation with the state. Because of the size and scale of the project.
Don?
When you put your stick up there with the, I guess that's orange and the blue knee up there, that's a curve, that's not an intersection. You got a road that you go back and left end up and you got one come through. That's just a curve. When you come down, all the way down where Gulfview North is out, that's a street by itself, then that blue follows all the way down.
The yellow and blue.
Why, that came to Gulfview, the whole street of Gulfview does stay the same. That's not an intersection, that's a curve.
Again, I've stood in the intersection, and I understand what you're saying, because there's a difference between how the geometry lays on the earth versus how it's used by the community. And how the geometry lays on the earth is not as you described. And don't shoot the messenger, I'm telling you what the data shows.
Is this on new map?
Say again?
New map?
What do you mean now?
Okay, I encourage you to drive that down Gulfview Drive North. Drive down it. There is a curve down there where it's got the yellow and green. There is a house here, there's woods here, there's a house here, there's a house on this corner and this corner. There is no other dirt road, no nothing there. So I don't know what you're looking at, but try it.
Yes, ma'am. In order to get that geometry, I had to drive it. So I was out there just the other day.
Okay, but what did you see that we don't see every day?
Again, it's how GIS works is geometry in 2 dimensions, right? So it's just how it's driven and the data. I don't know a different way to articulate that than just that.
Well, another thing that everybody has to consider, and y'all do too, I'm in the insurance industry, I've been for 30 years, something years. That's gonna affect everyone's insurance too, that they have to go to their insurance carrier, and it's not gonna matter.
It's not going to map currently, but that's something that we are working on. Because it's not an eventually no, ma'am. That is genuinely a later this month conversation that has been set, because each insurance carrier, how they verify the address is with what's called an API backend plugin that they use on their website or through their software. And that software is primarily based through Apple or Google. And I have a meeting with Google as per the beginning of this project later on this month on how we are going to get the true data from us to them so that their software and their maps will update, so the API plugins that insurance companies and things like that use in the back end to verify addresses will all match. So that is very much still an ongoing conversation.
Okay, Mike, I think you were next for your question. Mike?
Tonight is the first time that I've heard that the board has anything to do with the decision or influence in the name changing. So that's the first time I've heard it when you said it tonight. It's been either the BBCOG or Leon County. The letter that I received came from Leon County. My question is, my street changed from drive to avenue. It's a dirt road and gravel. I don't understand why it was changed from drive to avenue. And when I plug in the number address given to me by the letter I received that said everything was going to change back in January, Apple Maps resolved it to a lot that's 900 yards down the road, and it's a vacant lot. When I called the county about it, and I said, well, who's going to fix that? I was told, you need to call Apple Maps. I'm not gonna call Apple and tell them anything. So the question I have, you talk about Google, are you gonna contact Apple? And when do you expect all of this to be resolved before the name change and the street number change? And again, why do I go from 21 Clydesdale Drive to 444 Clydesdale Avenue? Doesn't make any sense to me.
Can I take the first one? Hey Mike, so at every board meeting since December, I have stated to everyone that we are working in conjunction with this group to try to get some changes done and push back on some other changes. So I have talked about that at every meeting, have I not?
But to Mike's point,
Yeah.
I'm pretty aware when I see these things, and words are important, right? And so, but I know it for me, and I'm a pretty sharp guy. I didn't realize that the board has any input on the names of the streets that are selected, and that drives me crazy going to train Bellevue. That I want to have some input in what it is. Smaller meetings for the people on the streets in those little 5, 6 separate areas. Let those groups of people know we're going to talk about your area today, and at least get the input. Remember, we're in an open board now.
Yep.
Has open discussion.
Question, are y'all gonna put a stop sign or close to that blue line? Is that a stop sign gonna be there?
Did you have a question next? Well, he had his hand up before you started.
Is there a way we can follow the questions?
I tried to contact the judge, I was trying to get this off, but they said no. I don't know what else to do. How do we protest formally?
How do we formally protest the change of our street names?
I mean, I tried to escalate it as high as I could, I think Tiffany has
Is
to.
there,
I mean,
we
we've been told
called
no.
the county, and they say they don't know nothing. Okay, what is the format so we can protest what our street name has been changed to, and so we can find out the why?
Absolutely. So again, I encourage that conversation with your board, and because they take all the questions and comments.
Or we can change it, y'all.
Okay, you're right, but you're asking about voicing an opinion and a concern, right? So if you're trying to voice an opinion or concern, I direct you to take that to your board so that they can voice it in our meetings.
I think so I think she's asking what is the formal way to escalate this above you. Right, is that what you're asking?
Is there a form, is there a formal?
Can you go to, is there a state website location you can get that? How do we stop this being solved?
The short answer to that is no, because it stops
So he said never stop the zero.
So who is your boss?
Charity dime me out. All right. For those who don't know me, my name is Roger Sheridan. I'm the Deputy Director for the Council of Governments. And I showed up here because this is a huge thing. You have a community that has lived here for years and has been in a certain way. We have guidance from our federal and state level saying, hey, Council of Governments, you got to go do this. This is what you need to do. So this is just not this community. We're talking about the 7-county region that we work in. This is only one small area. This is happening throughout. And no offense, but Tanner does not want to change a whole bunch of names because that is really just a ton of work and it gets people upset. He's doing it for the right reasons. And so, my boss is Terry, and she was here at some of the previous meetings. And unfortunately, she couldn't be here tonight, so I'm in her stead. So I'm taking a couple notes, and we'll discuss it. One of the biggest questions: how can you protest? I will have to research that because right now we're talking state and the feds.
Okay, I think so. It'll be you, then over there.
My question is, where Washington Drive starts, you okay, the left-hand side of all of that is the airstrip. So there can be no houses over there, is that correct? No lots for sale?
I cannot That's not how the system looks at it. The system doesn't prompt and ask the question of, can this be developed in this current time, right? It's ones and zeros that get plugged in, right? So when I come through and I take the road geometry and I come sorry, my computer comes. But basically, you're looking at golf view, right? And I program that road center line data, what we call RCL data line, right? I have to say on that data strand that based on parity, that one side of the road is even and one side is odd. I cannot say that nothing will exist on one side because I have to give the system something. It's not a flexible. So whether something can or cannot be developed today doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be like that in 5, 10, 20 years from now. And so I have to program it today based on what it is.
And the next?
Since the board is allowed to have input on the roads, where Gulfview makes the curve from the yellow to the blue, then maybe the board will listen to the concerns that the community has and maybe make a recommendation that stays Gulfview. And then that yellow road that goes up could be Gulfview Drive.
And that's what I've been trying to explain is that the geometry says the roadway is different.
Is it based on the curve being 15 miles an hour versus 5 miles an hour?
Again, it's when I take the device and I pull the data, right, from 9 satellites, I pull 9 satellite accurate data on the center line from the roadway, coming up from Gulfview up to what we're arguing is or is not an intersection, right? Because you get out to the middle, so when you go up Gulfview, there's a house that's right in front of you, right? And the road goes like this because you can go left and you can look at Buchanan. But you can look right, and that's continuing to Gulfview. But you had to come up to that spot, and you can do this number, right? Because that's how the data looks at it. And that's the only way I think I can articulate it, how the data were used. Because when I drive out to the intersection, and I pull the data, and I go, okay, this is where this is stopping, because I have to stop. There's a house right in front of me. And we call it a reverse double T, because you have Gulfview that comes up here, which is in the Buchanan, and then carries off into Gulfview again. But then you have Van Buren that's on the opposite side, so we call it a reverse T, because the road is still going like this. But you have two roadways at the beginning, because I cannot continue to go straight, because I get into a house. So as I get out, I have to stop pulling the data, and I look left, and Buchanan is off this way. And I look right, Gulfview is off that way. That is where the technology, the data says that the geometry is changing because you are now going this way to pick up more data. And that's where we stay all the way back around. Right?
Three would change 5,000 times.
Sir.
It's pretty sure the Earth satellite, that's when you're getting.
Correct, yes. We are accurate. We are accurate to 2.5.
So you might. It's a bridge.
Right. Well, I mean, but it flattens it out. No, of course. Well, I mean,
I heard you mention, sir, the Council of Governments and Project 2030, which I'm familiar with, and I would like you to elaborate more on that. It's my understanding through the Council of Governments that it's voluntary to participate in these types of things. And I would like to know if it is voluntary, as it states on your website for the North Central Texas Council of Governments, voluntary association of and by for local governments established to assist regional planning for the cause. Purpose is to strengthen both the individual and collective power of local governments and to help them recognize regional opportunities, eliminating unnecessary limitations, and making joint decisions. So my question is, can you define for us, if you please don't mind, sir, if you please don't mind elaborating for us, not only here tonight, but also in writing, about the National Council of Governments for our region, as well as Project 2030, which you said that this is a part of, because this is the first time that we're finding out that that's related to that. I would also like to know if that's part of ICLEA, if our area has been registered with ICLEA, and how that defines this region, and who gave permission to include us in this sustainability program.
So I'd like to, that was a lot of questions taken into one, so I want to try to understand them for what they are. The statement that you were reading, you said that was from where?
It's from the North Texas,
North Central Texas COG, right?
Yeah, the
So
North
what we
Texas.
call NCT COG, right? Which is a COG that is a region that is to north of us, because that's the Dallas area.
I used to live there, so.
Yeah. So NCT covers the Dallas area, the
Love
Dallas
it.
and Fort Worth area, and so I'd like to explain. So a few things that go to that is they are more on the voluntary side because everything up in the Dallas Fort Worth area is what's considered a special 911 district. So like the Brazos Valley Council of Governments, right? We help and assist over 7 counties as a whole, generally. But 911 only oversees 6 counties because Brazos County is a special 911 district. So when counties elect to become a special 911 district, they are no longer part of the COG. And so therefore they can say that we will assist you or we will help you in this process, but because you are your own district, you set the standards and the rules for your own district. And because Leon County, as a county as a whole, is not a special district, and is a part of the 6 counties that the 911 covers at the PB COG.
So who made that decision to hand it off to 911? Because you said they chose not to participate in the, who made that decision?
So you're asking how do you become special district?
No, I'm asking you who made that decision for our district and our county?
To not become a special? So it's to elect to become a special district or to stay underneath the COG?
To put us in the predicament that we're in now. How about that?
So to not elect to be in a special district. That,
Right,
again,
so
that is a
who
county.
had that prerogative to make that decision?
That would be that would be county officials because they have to elect to become a special district.
Okay, and that would have happened how long ago? Because this is sprung on us. If they made that decision a while back, they didn't.
It's not a opt out, it's a opt in. Like they have to say that because that's all based on population, that there's a lot of factors that go into whether you do or don't become a 911 district. There's a lot of.
I don't need to get in the weeds there, but I would like to know about. The relationship to the sustainability project within Project 2030.
I'd be more than happy to look into that because I can't. Again, I don't want to speak.
And how all this is related to ICLEA.
And I've never heard of it, so I don't have no idea.
Okay, that's like a green agenda that came through Texas years ago and brought in all sustainability type projects.
That's not going to be any guidelines that I have looked at that our region uses or any standards that are applied to us. There's only 3 sets of standards that we look at, and that is going to be CSEC and EN guidelines, and those are the ones that are the main standards that we move through in Bible.
Okay, so 2 takeaways from that. I'd like in writing, if you could, Project 2030 defined, as well as, what was the other one you mentioned? The COG relationship to Project 2030. And what my understanding is from reading other COGs, it's also about sustainability. So define.
We do look at like economic growth and development, right? But that is something that's baked in through through CSEC. But it's not any separate initiative. It's just again growth and development that it should be the forefront of every thought and conversation for a community that is.
Okay, I guess what I'm asking for is a map, if you will, of what other organizations are involved in 2030 that now we have found ourselves under this umbrella that we weren't aware of.
So if I can understand correctly, so we have our 7 counties, which 6 are part of this. You want to know the other council of governments and
Not just the council of governments, any type of governmental agency that we've now found ourselves involved with that we weren't even aware of until you came to
Texas, capital area. So I understand you want to know what they're doing, very similar to what we're doing here.
Well, not only that, I would like them to find, we have not even been made aware of what the Council of Governments is. Many of these people are just hearing that for the first time tonight.
What's the
So
Council of
what
Governments?
is it, what does it do? What's the history of it? What benefits does it provide for us? What drawbacks potentially? Same thing with Project 2030. That's another thing that, many people here have never heard of. And all of a sudden, we're under the both umbrellas for that. So it would be nice to know for the general population listener, not just the board, what is this defined as? We don't know what this means for any future plans going forward.
Okay, well, let's go back, come up with something we'll present it to the board and see if it meets their needs, and we can discuss it. But if you want something to learn about the Council of Governments and what we do, I can give a 10-hour brief on it, on all the capabilities.
So ma'am in the back, and then you.
Oh, well, I just want to say, I'm the only one that I know so far that has 4 addresses. If someone can tell me what is my address, then I will be glad to change it, but right now, I'm not changing 4 times.
And I would love to answer that question for you. Come talk with me afterwards, and I'll be happy to answer that for you.
Well, the first one was Flamingo Way. There's not a flamingo within 1,000 miles of here. I live on a dirt road in the woods. There aren't any flamingos. Then I got another one. I have my original. Then the appraisal district sent a letter with another address. So that makes 4.
And then Dawn.
When y'all first started this, there was a lot of street names changed, and all of a sudden, didn't y'all go back to some of them originally?
So there was a small rework that was done in January when the new board came in. So kind of change of the order.
So is it possible to do another rework with this golf use that?
We are T-minus 52 days from this project being completed.
That 2030. 2030 was told by Judge Ryder that day. I sat on the road. He said, when somebody asked, when does it deadline? He said, 2030.
And just like that, and just like that gentlelady said in the back, she has 4 addresses. So are you asking that for all 800 structures that I know to exist, or about roundabout to exist out here, that all of them be reissued a new address because you would like the project to work?
I think you said everyone's going to be issued new address, right?
But I mean, that's the issue if we try to turn back now, is that we are here at the end. We are phase 5, milestone 5 of 5 phases.
And then the lady in the back in the green, you had a question?
Yeah, my question is, so you said 54 days until y'all get it completed and we'll know what the actual address is? Because I got a letter saying I have 30 days to change my homestead. And, if I try to change it and it says there's no address, then, I mean.
So TJ Foley actually was able to get that extended, and so that 30 days no longer exists. It's all the way until next year. Yeah.
But how long till you actually get them right?
So some residents did get a few addresses based on when the board had its change of order. We had a new board that came in that wanted to be more thorough in the process than the previous. So that did require a rework. So some residents did get a few different letters based on how it was being reworked in that process. Now, I'm not going to say that Kirsten or I are perfect human beings, because I know that there are 3 that I made a mistake on, and that I personally sent a letter to, and actually said I apologize because this was on me. And Kirsten had to do the same thing. But anything that was reworked that we did in coordination with the board, those were just standard letters that were reissued. So if you're curious as to what your address is, if it's phases 1 through 3, I'd be more than happy to answer your question at the end of this as well.
And then the gentleman in the checkered blue shirt.
So, for those of us who have already bitten the bullet
and made whatever changes needed to be made to our driver's license and this, that, and the other, are we assured that there will be no other reworking?
So when the board changed and we came together in our meeting in January,
It was in the very first of January.
the very first of January, that is when all the rework occurred, right? And that's when we went back to phase 2 and moved forward on some of the pressing concerns that community members had brought to the board, that the board had. We had very long meetings over those. And those reworks were already done. And then it was agreed upon by both sides, right? By both the POA, that county, and us, that, once we had the meetings were done, and we moved forward on those changes, that we also weren't retroactively going backwards. So if you are a part of the rework, there's not another rework that's coming.
So in the 54 days that are left for this final phase, at the end of that 54th day, is that when you'll be in touch with Google and all the other?
I have a meeting with Google in 2 weeks. I don't have my calendar right in front of me, but it is this month.
Okay, and is Google going to consider you an authority on the address?
They do, because they recognize that CSEC has given BBCOG the authority. So
Okay.
yes. But
That's always a big issue with Google.
Oh, trust me.
Yeah.
I had to go through those in the very beginning. But the biggest thing with Google and Apple I've talked with 5 different what they call mapping engineers. And again, it's just we are a small fish in their very big pond. And Google, finally, when I got a dedicated engineer, Google said once we have passed the 80% threshold of the project, based on the size, scale, and scope, that they would be willing to look at the changes that were made and how they're going to get the newly acquired data over to them the format that they want, because the format that we use is not necessarily the same as what Google uses. Because we actually obtain a lot more data than what Google and their little smart car, electric car that drives around with a little spinny thing on top.
So Apple won't be as quick?
I work on it, and it's something that's still an active process for me, and I don't want to sit here and make false promises to you. That's not the type of person that I am.
And then Donna, you're next.
Okay, I'm going back to Gulfview, because I live on Gulfview. Is there a reason why you could at least just make it like Gulfview East? And then we go around the corner, just so we can keep the same name?
If there wanted to exist a conversation with your representatives here about changing what's currently Gulfview and putting it on the back side rather than the front side and changing the front side name, then yes. But based on the geometry and how it sits and how the road moves, we cannot have it from where it is and then kind of half place it over here and move it around again. So if I could finish your question, yes ma'am. So to answer that, if we change this Gulfview, then that opens up Gulfview again to where we can put it on the back side. And if that is something that you would like to discuss with your representatives in here, that could be a conversation on how that is re-looked at. But that would be a conversation between you and the POA.
I don't think that's what she was asking. I think she was saying, okay, so now the answer is, okay, you can't have Gulfview make a turn. So can you make Gulfview now become the turn part, instead of Sand Lane, be Gulfview East, Gulfview Drive East, and then Gulfview Drive North? Keep the Gulfview Drive for the people that live in Gulfview Drive. Just don't change the beginning Gulfview. But why can't you do that? Those are distinct names. Those are not the same.
No, I'm not. Again, so what you're referring to is what's called a pre-type. Okay? But by putting a nomenclature, north, south, east, west, before a street name, is what's called a pre-type. Just like Land Street Boulevard is a post type. And if I'm understanding the question, that's why I'm rephrasing this so I make sure I understand, is take Gulfview as it stands, make it South Gulfview, and then as it turns, make it East Gulfview.
Actually, I was like the post, just like Gulfview Drive North. No one's had a problem with Gulfview Drive and Gulfview Drive North, because Gulfview Drive North pulls off into the north and she's saying, hey, why can't you be Gulfview Drive, then Gulfview Drive East, and Gulfview
Because
Drive?
then we would have to have South Gulfview Drive.
Why?
Because if we're gonna do it right ethically, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right by the rules. So if we have a Gulfview and you're asking, we're proposing that it be East Gulfview, then I'm not understanding the question.
Gulfview Drive is the main road coming off of Hilltop Lake Drive. So you wouldn't change it, that would make sense. But all she's saying is, it used to continue all the way to the golf course, it made sense, and then the one road that came off was Gulfview Drive North. Made perfect sense. It wasn't North Gulfview Drive, because that's north and south in a city.
Right.
No, it was Gulfview Drive North. It was the north extension off of Gulfview Drive. All she's saying is, why wouldn't you do that little inside blue section, instead of sand, whatever, have it Gulfview Drive East and Gulfview Drive North? Then people all get Gulfview Drive, but we still know it makes sense because it's Gulfview Drive, then East, and then North. It makes perfect sense. And it's not a north or south like it's.
Hey, Tanner, this couple right here, you got a question earlier that never got answered. For their first question.
Well, I have two questions. I know everybody in here, there's some missing now, but not everybody has a home that is paid for in full. There are people that have mortgages. You still got out on your mortgage company income. Excuse me. I no longer am 42 cents. I am now blah, 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 cents. My house doesn't exist anymore, so you're gonna have to change my address.
No, we just do it for whose house is up there?
And two, I don't know about anybody else in here also. My driver's license costs more than a regular driver's license. So when you change my address, I'm gonna have to pay between $65 and $85 if they raise it again to get my license replaced because it's commercial driver's license. So who gets paid out?
So have you been to DPS with the letter that the county provided you?
I haven't got a letter, that's why I'm asking the question.
So to the second half of that question, I do not recall directly off the top of my head, what exactly we talked about with our regional rep from the Texas Department of Public Safety, regarding commercial driver's licenses. But for everybody else with a driver's license, the letter that the county issues you, if you take that with you to DPS, for your address change on your license, then it is at no cost. And we did that prior to. Now, for those who have already gone or dealt with.
That also covers vehicle registration.
Great question, but county, that's typically done through the county. So that's a good question.
Have you seen the information on us?
Yes.
I can tell you, you don't have to pay something for it, what you're
I
talking
know,
about.
last time I got renewed, it was 65 or something, it was already.
Keep that thing out, you'll have to pay something.
So, in regards to mortgages on other projects that we have worked on and dealing with banks and things of that nature, when the same county issued letter that comes, most local banks only have one bank that has called me for additional paperwork. But every other bank has taken the same county issued letter and been able to work with that on updating or on documents.
John Marguerite,
Well, I have questions for both. Okay, so, you said that Google Maps and Apple Maps will get in contact with them to update addresses. So what about USPS?
USPS uses, and I don't know which one it is because I've been told that each postmaster can do it a little differently. And then I've been told that some postmasters, they all use the same thing. So I don't entirely know what back-end app or what back-end plugin is running the apps that they use. But the postmasters have been thoroughly updated. Mr. Zinga, who is over the entire INSAC community, he gets an email from me once a month on what the updates are and what addresses are updating to be so that he can make sure that he's updating his list. As far as the USPS standard. Now, as it comes to UPS and FedEx, I don't know what back end.
I haven't had problems with them, but USPS I've had issues with.
Yes, Mr.
Because they don't know, you tell them you live on Gulfview Drive North, and they say, well, we don't see that anywhere, we don't know what that is. it's problematic, but, I was just wondering if they were gonna be notified and all this was gonna be.
Yes, it's the postmaster name, I can't pronounce his last name to save my life, he's a nice gentleman. But it's Mr. Z, so I call him, he has an email for me once a month on what updates are coming, and I know that he has what's called an MSAG list, because again, in this process, in the back end, some of the technical things that we do is we update, it's called the MSAG, for the coastal community, which is something that he can draw from, but until those changes get all the way through Motorola and Tron and up to the state, reviewed by Geocom, and back down and then out, and it's a long and timely process. I clued him in onto all the emails that we have so that he has updated information.
My question for the POA is,
Once that-
we have all, are gonna have to go through getting our licenses changed, addresses changed, go through all this stuff. The, all the 911 redo is not gonna mean anything if they don't know what street is what. Are y'all prepared to fix all the street signs?
I related to the question that I had earlier, as far as.
I know you're concerned about the cost,
Yes.
but, I mean, we're gonna jump through all these hoops, and are we, if somebody from out of the hilltop comes in here for a 911 call, and there's no street sign, or a street sign that's got the wrong name on it.
Yeah, when do we think we're gonna start printing, because we had talked about this, the street signs and swapping them out. I think we're just trying to make sure that the changes.
Are permanent? Okay.
Yes.
But what's your timetable for that?
Yeah, so I think we need to work on that. Maybe let it be a workshop item for next week, is like, talk about the timeline of that, right? If we work that out, how long. I think we'll need to know how long it takes to make the signs and put out all that.
Well, I was just gonna say, I have done some like rough numbering to what it is going to cost us. Just in printing all of those streets to be changed, and we're looking at somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000.
Oh, my Lord, ouch.
That doesn't include the poles.
That does not include the poles, that does not include the labor. That is strictly for the material to print those signs.
For 12 lots, that's messed up.
So, when y'all have your conversation with the state, if you could let them know, we get zero funding from the county for this. Really, anything. Everything out here gets funded.
The state, that's why
Yeah,
I was
okay.
able to get my meetings and my conversations to even pitch the
Yeah.
idea, was because Hill Public receives no funding from the county.
That's from our meeting in the state.
Correct, yes, and that was something that we followed up and followed through with, and that's, based on the scope, size, and scale of the project, and because of the lack of funding from the county. That is why the state was able to initially secure, and right now I'm still going through a bid process, I'm still going through, kind of like the acquisition of, are we making sure that we're getting different sources for bids, we'll walk through the bid process, right, to make sure that we're getting the most competitive, bid for everything, and then it goes up to the state, and the state has to review that part of whatever, however long their internal review process is, and then there's a hearing, and then we hear the report. So we're still in the midst of that process, is why I don't want to say that no funding was allotted, or the state could come back and say, you know what, we recognize the capital project and where they're at, and we'll need it at 50%. But it has to be done by the standard the state's going to take. So it has to be on a green T-pole, and it has to be on this bracket, or on this color sign, because they're a little nuance.
That takes that one to be responsible for the sign, the height, the type of post, the breakaway post, something like that.
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak ahead of those conversations or say that there will or won't be, right? It's still an ongoing thing, but I mean, it's just one of those that. It's very much a teeter conversation.
Kind of read between lines, you're gonna get money from the state, federal government, they're gonna make sure you do their standards.
Correct, they're gonna want it done, and that's, again, a part of those conversations of this private community, and it's not something that, Jordan Bridge would come out and say, that there would be private funding that has to go into that, which is how we're gonna pay their maintenance people, right? So yes, those are, again, part of the evolving conversations that my team and I have been having, and it's very much
And
ongoing.
remind them, we are taxpayers. We just don't pay POA, we pay taxes for everybody else's service.
Of course.
And then Kate, here's a good question next. Good, you're getting raised?
No letter from, oh, you talking to me?
Yeah, Kate, here's the
Letter from Leon Central Appraisal District. If I don't change my address on my driver's license within 30 days of this letter, I lose my homestead exemption.
So Mr. Foley got with the county, that was an automated, Mr. Foley got with the county cat office, that was an automated process that wasn't running in front of anybody, it's an automatic process that when someone changes, it just runs through a process to print those letters. So, he agreed to allow that to be, pushed out until the end of the year. In my
Did we get that in
opinion-
writing?
Yeah, so, I believe Mr. Foley sent us an email of that in writing, is that not?
Yeah.
So, I'll get a formal from the county, the CAD, and all that, we'll get that formalized, in writing. But I've even heard that if somebody comes in early next year, they're gonna take it. That is what I heard directly from them. So, and then Mr. Sir, yes, you are the, yes, sir.
Did I understand correctly that every resident out here, their number will change?
Yes.
And this will happen in 52 days?
It will be finished in 50, we've already been doing this, it's not something that started overnight, this is phase 5. So the phase 5, which is the last phase, will be finished in 52 days.
Are you in the golf course area?
Yeah. They're not golf view.
So about how long do you
Presently,
think you will
golf.
get this letter?
So we're still acquiring structure point data because there are many people who live out and around the golf course who never went by the 911 office and got an official 911 address and does not exist within our data. So that has caused delay because we are out here several times to acquire the point data that we did not have.
So do you think it'll be about 30 days?
So it should be, so based on the project timeline, letters for phase 5 will go out in early April with the 30-day notification that the address is going to change.
And am I correct in saying that at this point in time, there's nothing we can do to get a name change? Because the board has already made that name change with you.
So most of it was proposed by him. Which street do you live on now?
Golf view.
So you're on the back side of Golf View?
I'm on the blue line. Golf view east. I'm on the blue line. Golf view east.
So here's what we were told. We were told that either this one can say Golf View or that one can say Golf View. Not my decision.
Somebody in the board should say golf view. You're saying it's too late to make
It's a little confusing because you're saying one thing, he's saying another.
We can't keep it golf views, but we can have a discussion about what other name still falls under golf. Par with only one R. Par with one R. We can still have a discussion about what that stretch is called. But there is a database that wants a name, because believe me, we did this earlier. There is a name, you come up with a name, you put it in there, if there's anything close to it, it's kicked out.
But we have how many hectares? We still
No, we don't. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. They're gone now. There's one. That's what I'm saying. So when a name is picked, okay, so golf, you can't all say the same. Okay, so when a name is picked, there's a database where
surveys either, apparently, because a foot of my driveway is in somebody else's lot.
So, that's where we are with the street naming. I mean, we have, y'all don't know how many street names we've been through to try to keep in each section the street names in with whatever the theme of that area is. And so, I mean, there's only so many golf courses can be, we can't use 4 for a street name. Because it sounds just like if you're calling it 911, the number 4. So we can't use 4 at all. There's things like that that come into play, like he was talking about T. You can't use that because then T what? You see what I'm saying? So, I mean, trust me, I have read more on addressing than I ever wanted to know in my entire life. But also I think that we are trying as hard as we can to keep street names within the theme of where those streets are. And that's the best we can do. We can either work with them to do this, or they're going to decide names that we don't have any say in. And that's what the bottom line is on.
The last map you had up there that had the blue line and all that. So the streets that were on that didn't have any colors on them, those names are not changing? I know my numbers are changing, but those streets are not changing.
So the highlighted roads that were on there were to reflect for me to be able to visually show the board, right, was how the geometry falls. So the colored lines that you saw was based off the geometry data, not what is not being changed. It was for us to have a discussion on road geometry, and you have an option to do X, or you can do Y, and this is where here are the confines of what the standards and rules are, and here are the options that we're left with, and so you can do A or B, and I'm here to help facilitate that decision. So just because it wasn't highlighted doesn't mean that it wasn't being affected. Same seed is same seed.
So, I think what she was saying is the ones that you didn't highlight, you didn't have a problem with.
Geometry of them, the geometry of the roads that were unhighlighted was true geometry.
That doesn't mean the name did not change on those roads. Yeah. Just the highlight does not mean that if it wasn't highlighted, it doesn't mean that road didn't change. It just wasn't an issue with the geometry of the road and having the same name and all of that.
Can you have your favorite?
Yeah, just before we go to, I think I understand this now. You're going to 3 numbers for every address. So like, you start on golf, it's not going to be 1 golf, maybe like 100 or 101 golf, 102, 103 golf. Right? That's the deal. So every street, every house will have 3 numbers.
This whole community, the base of this entire community was 100. That was the base of the entire community. So every start of every roadway is what we call a roadway base. That roadway base is 100. And then the math is applied to where your driveway is based off of.
Yeah, you got to make sure it's enough to cover all the lots that even if they're not built.
Any other questions?
I'm assuming you're on the same team. Okay, so the letters for phase 5 will go out at the beginning of April, and they will be on 30 days. They will have 30 days to let them know that. That's why I say we're 50 days out, because phase 5 will be implemented in May. So it'll go live
4 lanes, boulevards, and yet they're using those. So is AI picking these, or are they picking it? They're not indicative to our identity. That's what I come back to over and over. It is not our identity, is it? No.
The numbers are also supposed to be.
The numbers, I compare. I never knew my numbers and lived on Main Street. You know, I lived on Main because that was one of the first cases that they had 2 lanes in the county. That is not true. So background. Urban development, ag leadership, good ag. Well, you know, how did you get your credentials to do this? And like he asked, where are these things coming from? Flamingo, bonsai bed. Somebody said,
Apple Valley Drive, I don't know if California come up with that.
You first.
Well, I can't tell you anything about interesting about the question you had. You did say about leadership. I have 21 years in the United States Marine Corps. I also has about 14 years, and I'm also the commander of Texas State Guard. I'm also deputy director and work in Homeland Security from the Justice. That's my job every day is to make sure he's protected. Because, you know what? Think about it. This is how government is supposed to work. This is the community, the locals, goes to the boards, you go and to the regions and state. If there's concerns, it gets addressed. This is how it's supposed to happen. Well, they set a timeline, have a schedule from the very beginning, phase 1 on. There was a timeline set.
You don't own the road, you don't pave the road, you don't put up the street sign. We own the road, they're private roads. How can you change the name on a private road? I got a driveway on my land over here, I got 28 acres, and I named that road out there, you're not gonna associate it. It's on my land, and I own it, how amazing.
You still have to get a 911 address.
I got an acre.
You have to get a 911 address. You can't get it out of the street.
Now here, I don't know why you would go to 911. We got the best ambulance in the country right there in West California. We got our own fire department in the West. And if you want to die, you better get your own to the house. It'll be 30, 45 minutes for you. And you figure it out. Serious, that's true.
Motion